Okay, so what I want to share with you, try to go through a little bit today, is try to understand a story which we have in Jewish history, very famous story, about someone by the name of Elijah the prophet. Anybody heard of him before? Eliyahu HaNavi. So Eliyahu HaNavi, Elijah the prophet, the story goes like this. It was a king. The king that was ruling the Jewish people, his name was Achav. In English, I think they call him Ahab. Anybody heard of him? Ahab. All right. Now, he was a pretty bad king, at least for the Jewish people, that he came along and he instilled something very big, which is called idolatry. If you know, probably you're familiar with the idea that the Jewish people for many years now have been what's called a monotheistic religion, believing in only one God and having connection with one God. And he was very into the idea of what? Really spreading the wealth, yeah? Not just one God, there's multiple gods, let's be involved in everything and the whole thing. And by doing that, he entered into this idea that what happens is like now people were doing the following. Although they were worshiping God, they were also worshiping all the other gods. And it got to a point where Elijah the prophet comes to Ahab and he says the following. Let's just keep on names. I'm assuming I should write in English. Is that better? Okay, so it goes like this. Yeah? So Elijah, or as I'm going to write him as we know him as Eliyahu, is one character. Another one is Achav, or Ahab. I'm going to call him like that, Achav. And the other one is Jezebel, or I don't know how to spell this in English, Izevel. Okay, these are husband and wife. Okay, husband and wife. Achav and Izevel are husband and wife. Elijah, Eliyahu is a prophet. And Achav is the one who introduces this idea of idolatry, and the Jewish people really get sucked into it. Eliyahu says, enough of this. You can't be doing this, man. You know it's wrong. We got to stop it, yo. And he's like, I ain't stopping nothing, fool. He's like, you know what? I challenge you. I challenge you. He goes, you challenge me? Bring it, baby. What you got? He goes, I challenge you to a showdown, aight? You come on and you say, you want to tell me that there's multiple gods? I believe in only one. So what you say, we do a little showdown. Well, what are the stakes? It says, well, what we're going to do is, we're each going to get a chance to bring a sacrifice to what we consider to be the powerful force in the world. And we'll see which one gets accepted. Make sense? If mine gets accepted, then you'd have to admit that I probably am, I'm probably correct and you're not. If yours gets accepted, I'll have to either bow my head or I'll have to deal with it. It makes sense what's going on here? Is it a fair deal? So what does Achav respond? Either way, he's stuck. Either because he thinks he's going to win, or even if he thinks he's not going to win, you can't turn down the offer because then it's going to be clear that you can't, right? You can't bring it out. Yeah, everybody gets that? So he goes ahead and he agrees with it. Now the sages tell us that he was a little bit nervous. And he's like, great. He knew, sorry about that, but that he knew he's not going to win. He was fooling all these people to be involved in idolatry. He knew he wasn't going to win. But even though he knew he wasn't going to win, he still had to take the deal. So he had his right-hand man, that little guy everyone has next to them. And his right-hand man is like, Achav, don't worry about it. Because this is what we'll do. We'll build like a little platform, you know what I'm saying? Like Penn and Teller style. And I'll slide underneath. And when you go do your thing, I'll light a fire from underneath. No one will know. No one will be the wiser. It's like, yes, let's do it, baby. So comes the day of the showdown. The entire Jewish people show up. They're going to see, okay, what's going to happen? What's going to be? They take their seats. They're all sitting around. And Achav goes and he builds up this massive monument, right? This big altar, but really a stage, right, to be able to get underneath. And he builds this little thing and he starts to get everything ready. The guy slips underneath when nobody's watching. And as he's waiting under there, a snake comes. A poisonous snake comes, bites his leg, and he dies. But nobody knows about this, right? Nobody knows he was under there. And then Achav's all right, here we go. And everyone's like, yeah, here we go, defense, right? And they do the whole thing, and everyone's excited. They pass around popcorn, beer, get your beer. And everyone's watching what's going to happen. This is the challenge of the century, of really the millennia. So they go ahead, and Achav starts going, all right, gods of the gods, come on, bring it, right? And what happens? Nothing happens. They start putting the music, bum, 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 nothing's happening. So he goes and he starts screaming words like, come on, baby, light my fire, right? And nothing is happening. Eliyahu sees nothing's happening, so he goes. He's like, "Oh, Achav, maybe you're just not doing it loud enough. Maybe scream a little louder. You understand? Maybe that will help." So he's like, Come on, baby, light my boy. Set fire to the rain. And he's trying every one of them. Oldies but goodies. Going through all of them, right? The best hits of the 80s, 90s done in today. And he's going through, and nothing is working. Nothing's working. And he goes through this whole day of nothing happening. Finally has to bow his head in shame that nothing. So Eliyahu was like, all right, my turn. Sets up an altar. After setting up the altar, to make things just a little bit crazier, he floods the region. That it should be, that if this is a fire, it shouldn't just be some game, some trick, but it's going to be flooded in a way that the water should put out the fire if it was just like a small little thing. Floods the region, and he gets up and he says, all right, people, ready? Everyone's watching now, seeing what's going to happen. To make a longer story shorter, Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu, then goes and he prays out to God. And he prays to God, what happens? A fire comes down from on high. And not only takes the sacrifice, but dries up the entire region. Everything completely and totally dry. And the Jewish people are like, holy schnitzel. That was crazy. Oh my Shabbos. And they're like, what was that? And then Eliyahu gives one of the epic speeches, one of these epic, YouTube speeches, like best speeches and best movies, right? This is like epic. He gets up, a chair appeared and a table, and he stood on it. And he said, people, how long you going to straddle the fence? You got to make a decision. You can't straddle the fence for two reasons. One, it's painful. The other, you can't live a life of this and that. How long are you going to be dancing in two places? You got to make a choice. You're going to that wedding, you're going to that wedding. So he goes and says, you can't straddle the fence. Are you with God or are you with gods? You can't say I'm with gods and with God. You want to be with gods? Go for it. You want to be with God? Go for it. But you can't do both. So what do they say? We're with God. I mean, after seeing such a thing, incredible. Some would even say that was impossible, right? But he pulled it off. People are shouting it from rooftops. It's unbelievable, right? So how did he go and pull off? What's going on? It's reminiscent of anybody saw the movie Hook. You know the movie Hook? Robin Williams, old fat guy, comes back and is Peter Pan. You know what I'm talking about? Right? So in Hook, we know when he comes back, who took over? Who took over in the meantime? Rufio. Remember Rufio? Right? You man, you stupid man, right? In their whole fight and whole battle. Now, no one knew what to do because Peter Pan's back, right? You got to go with Peter Pan. But then it was like, well, wait a minute, Rufio. And they didn't know what to do. So finally, they drew a line in the sand. Anybody remember the scene? They draw a line in the sand. Like, all right, you got to make a choice. Rufio on one side, Peter Pan on the other. You can't be in both. Which one are you on? Everybody goes to Rufio, except for one kid. He goes over to Peter Pan, and he basically kicks him in the knee, right? Kicks him in the shin, so he falls down, and he goes and starts touching his face. He's like, oh, there you are, Peter. Right? And then he goes with him. Then there's a whole battle, and the whole thing happens. At the end of the day, even Rufio goes over to, I'm sorry, spoiler alert, I just ruined it. I know what happens, and he goes, and you're like, man, I was going to watch that movie from 1994. Anyway, the bottom line is they all go over to the side of Peter Pan. But what was the point? He's saying you got to make a choice in your life. You got to make a decision. Now, let me ask you a question. Tell me why what I'm saying is not equal, or it is equal. Have you ever heard a person say the following idea? A person decides that they want to have some relationship with Judaism in some way, shape, or form. Okay, I don't know any of you here. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you're from. I don't know what you did. As long as you love me, you know what I'm saying? Who you are. Okay, so it doesn't make a difference really, the backgrounds, but I'm going to point to the following. Has anyone here, don't answer this because it might be embarrassing, but think about it. Answer it with silently so no one will know. Just go like, ah, and then I'll know. They say, little symbol, you know what I'm saying? Okay. Has anyone here ever had a moment when they decided that they want to get closer and be involved in some concept of doing something Jewish? Anything, something Jewish at all, right? And you go, okay, right? We've all had these ideas that we want to. And you go and you start doing something. Whatever it is, you start doing something. And you say, you know what? I like this Shabbat thing, you know? I like the Shabbat thing. You know, I think I'll check it out a little more. Or, I don't know about the Shabbat thing, but I like the kosher thing. I like the cuisine. You know what I'm saying? It's very delicious, cholent, you know? And not only the cuisine, I also like the company of the Shabbat table while we're eating kosher. Okay, now, if some people like Shabbat, some people like kosher, some people like this, right? Have you ever found a rabbi come to you and say the following? Oh, you're doing Shabbat but not kosher? You're either doing it all or nothing. If you're doing Shabbat and not kosher, just stop doing Shabbat. Is that the general approach you have seen? But what did Eliyahu do? He's like, people, either with God or with gods, you can't be with both. If you're not going to do it fully, then go the other way. What's he doing? Anybody hear the question? But what's he doing? Understand? Like, imagine he was on campus, trying to bring people closer to Judaism, right? He's like, hey, you want to do something? Yeah, I'll do something. Everything. He's like, dude, who are you, right? I'm Eliyahu. God, bring the fire. You'd be like, dude, right? And you'd run away. You understand? But what's going on over here? Eliyahu's kind of saying to Jewish people, you got to do it all or nothing. Is that what he's saying? Yes or no? Is that what he's saying? Yes or no? Good. You call my hint, yeah? That's not what he's saying. What's the difference between the two cases? You want to know the difference? In one case, when you go and a person says, you know what? I think I'll do one thing, but I'm not ready to do all of it, but I'll do one thing. What are they saying? They're saying, listen, I might agree with this. I don't know that I'm ready to do it, but I might agree with it. Do we see that? Is there ever a time in your life where you'll know something to be true in any area? Whether you should eat a certain way, or you should sleep more or less, or whatever. You'll know something to be true, but you won't do it. Have we ever had a situation like that? We know something is true, but we don't do it. Let's say you're from Arizona or something, whatever, right? So you know something's true and you don't do it anyway. Okay, we know that. That's one case. Here's another case where it's a contradiction. To say I believe in one God and I believe in multiple gods doesn't make any sense. Do we get that? If you get it, do not move. Great. Okay, so you all got it. So the idea is when a person goes ahead and they know something is true, but they don't do it, that's one case. Another is where you go and you say this is true and this is true, and those two things contradict. That's what Elijah was saying. He wasn't saying a person has to jump in and do everything. He's saying that you can't have a theological contradiction, that there's a God and there's no God, and that there's God and there's gods. You got to pick one of those, and then when in those, then you'll decide what you'll keep and what you won't keep. And he goes and he says famously, all right, this is what you got to do. This is a story. Now we get Izebel. Izebel, the wife of Achav, now steps up. And she goes, good show, my boy. Good show. I just want to let you know, Eliyahu, that tomorrow I'm going to kill you. Have a lovely day. What do you think Eliyahu's response is going to be to that? Oh no. He gets scared and he runs away. What's going on? I thought he had the whole Jewish people on his back. What about the fact of having a little faith in God? You understand? Well, why is he running away? And furthermore, if he really thought it could happen, then Izebel must have thought herself she might be able to pull it off. How come she doesn't just kill him? Why is she sending a message, tomorrow I will kill you? Why not just kill him today? What about the next day? Nobody's going to care. Because that inspiration comes and then it goes. Is that right? So what does we do about it? Put another shrimp in the barbie, yeah? So what do we do about it? How does a person go ahead and actually make it that it lasts? And Eliyahu Hanavi understands this and realizes this and agrees with him. And he goes, uh-oh, what am I going to do now? So he goes ahead and he runs away. Because he realizes that the words of the prophets, of the king's wife, of Izebel, are right. The Jews are inspired today, but tomorrow they're not going to be. And therefore, I'm going to die. I'm not going to live forever. I'm going to learn how to fly, right? But it's not going to work. So he goes and he runs away. So now I ask you, have you ever been inspired before to do something and then not done it before? More than one time? So how do you make it real? How does a person take inspiration? You've been now on a 9 to 10 day trip, which I'm sure you're pumped up in any area of your life, something you're pumped with. But you're going to go back, and you know what's going to happen? You're going to go right back to where you were before you came on this trip. So many people get started, they get excited, they get pumped, they want to do. They even say, when I get back, I'm going to. Did anyone say that on this trip? When I get back, I'm going to. Question is, will you? And if you won't, why won't you? And how does a person keep it real? We go and we make decisions. You got to change these things, but investigate and know that these decisions are correct. Don't just accept them for what they are. You said a beautiful idea before that maybe the news is biased and whatever. Get down to the truth of it. And that's exactly what we're talking about. Work it through, get down clarity and understanding about which direction should you be going in before you get inspired with something. Because if you get inspired with something and it's the wrong thing, it's going to cause you some pretty bad heartache if you ever wake up from it, right? But if you go ahead and you actually think it through a little bit, iPhone or Samsung, right? And so many choices, right? Or you go ahead, Nokia, stop. Or what used to exist, there's a company I think called BlackBerry. The idea is one that you go ahead and you're involved with those things and you actually work them out. You don't just accept it. Oh, people, what I want to do right now, quick recap of everything we did, end up with one point, then we'll take any questions, comments, stories, jokes, tags. Here we go. So we started to begin with the whole story that happens at the bottom line. This guy in the middle, the guy get Achav and he's Evel. Achav is the king of the people. What does he do? He goes and gets involved in the idea of idolatry. And although involved in idolatry, also serving one God. And Eliyahu says, enough of this, man. Get a little showdown, bring it. What happens? It goes into these snake bites and goes, come on, baby, but on fire. What happens? Not working out. Set fire. It doesn't work in the letter. What happens? Maybe you got to go a little louder. He starts screaming, and then the word comes along, Eliyahu, he sets it up, and bam, pants on the ground. Everything happens like all around, looking like a fool with your pants on the ground, get your cap on side. All of a sudden, right in front of them, they're looking all foolish, right? Because what happens is going with them for so long, they're like, oh my goodness. And he says, what? How long? You're going to straddle the fence, people. First of all, ow, it hurts. You can't do it. Number two is the idea is, well, you got to make a decision. What do you mean? I should do everything? Come on, be involved in Judaism. Everything. Whoa. No, we're not saying that, but ideologically, you can't have some sort of contradiction over there. You got to give something else that makes a little bit of sense. So you with him, we with him. How long are you going to straddle the fence? Rufio. There you are, Peter. Make a decision and get clarity. Which one is Peter and which one isn't, yeah? Then what do you got to do? What happens? It comes the next day and Eliyahu comes like, good show, my boy. Tomorrow you will die. What is he doing? What is he thinking? Eliyahu's like, oh my God, I'm going to run away. And he runs away. What are you scared of? Get the whole Jewish people got your back. Answer is, how long does inspiration last? Forever. But other people, how long does inspiration last? It lasts 5 minutes. Some of us are in between. But there's what we get inspired and then it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. You've all been inspired before. Time, master. You did good. Right? But the rest is what happened. We totally lose it. How come? Answer is because we didn't do. You kept it in theory, but didn't put it into practice. What are we going to do? And what do you got to do? When you got to do it, you got to make the decision before you walk on the plane and with a real practical plan. But then, my friends, you got to know you're even making the right decision. In other words, start to investigate a little bit. Before you jump into doing on any sort of inspiration, start working it through, questioning and investigating. Is this the thing I should be doing or not? Maybe it's the right thing. Maybe it's very much the wrong thing. And when a person does those investigations, it'll be difficult to get out of that relationship and to get out of inspiration and to be able to go in another direction, but they're going to live a much more fulfilled life, something of meaning, of purpose, and when they wake up from it, they're going to realize, hey, I didn't wake up from it because it's exactly the right thing which I should be doing, and then we don't have any regrets at all, but we live our life properly with that inspiration, and we continue with it in an unbelievable, powerful, and meaningful way. Any questions, comments, stories, jokes, attacks? You know it's the right thing. You get inspired, you're going with it, but then you kind of lose the inspiration a little. Like, how do you keep that up? Is that the question? Right? Answer is very, very straightforward, or a little difficult. The way that you do it is, you do it. What I mean by that is that you're going to have days that are going to be down. This is normal life. Life works like a roller coaster. Some days you're pumping, you're cracking, lacking, like there's no tamacking, you just want it. Other days, how is it with the diet? Some days you're ready to go, right? You're ready to rock, you're good. Other days you just followed the food with your eyes, right? As it went, and then lunged at it, yeah? And other days, it's very difficult. What do you do during those days of difficulty? You push yourself in a way that you say, I'm going to hold out today. Now, you have to obviously do small steps, right? But you say, today I'm going to keep it out. And what happens when you push that enough times, and then it brings it back, that inspiration. If you're conscious of it, you're aware, and you're pushing it, you're actually thinking, not just going with it by road, but thinking about it, then it becomes real too in a way that you want to continue with it. Excellent question and a wonderful answer. Thank you. When a person drops something, it's the hardest thing to get re-inspired, which is why don't drop it. An example would be a person who's driving, right? You're driving. When you're inspired, you're flying. You understand? You're going like 70 miles an hour. And it's a 70 zone. You're good. You understand? You're flying down. Then you lose that inspiration. You know what people then do? They stop the car. it's a lot harder to continue with something when you've stopped it than it is before it drops. You get it? And a better example, I think, would be a cow. But I don't have a cow with me, so I'm going to use a chair. Okay, now, when this chair is up here, if it starts to fall, in other words, I start to lose that inspiration, when it starts to fall, if it's at the beginning of falling and I catch it right away, I can catch it with one finger and it's easy. It might be hard, but it's easy. Get it? In other words, it might be a challenge is what I meant, but it's easy. It might be hard, but it's easy. It makes sense, right? It might be a challenge, but it's easy. What happens if I just let it go? Then I need my whole hand to catch it. That did hurt. You understand? That person goes ahead. No, I'm just kidding. It's good. All right, when you do the whole hand. And if it goes further, you might even need two hands. You get it? If it hits the ground, then you have to use all your force to bring it up. So what you're mentioning is you get inspired. Then you lose it. It's a lot harder. But if you keep doing something with it, so then instead of going 70 miles an hour and then stopping, you went 70, drop to 50, but then you'll be able to pick it up back to 70 because you never dropped it completely. Make sense? So the idea is what? During those difficult times, those challenges, those hardships, don't stop completely. You can slow down a little, but don't stop. Because if you stop, you might not start again. Anything else? Tis been a placer. Thank you so much. I'll see you when I see you. And bye-bye.